Father Nicholas Grace, missionary here in Southern Ireland, reading for you the Gospel of the day from Luke chapter 17. Jesus said to the apostles, "Who among you would say to your servant, who has just come in from plowing or tending sheep in the field, 'Come here immediately and take your place at the table'? Would he not rather say to him, 'Prepare something for me to eat'? Put on your apron and wait on me while I eat and drink. You may eat and drink when I am finished'? Is he grateful to that servant because he did what he was commanded? So should it be with you. When you have done all you have been commanded, say, 'We are unprofitable servants. We have done what we are obliged to do.'" The Gospel of the Lord. I'd like to speak to you today about the saint which the Church remembers, who certainly was a generous servant of the Lord. Let us go back to the declining age of Roman discipline, the old empire, a time when the martial spirit of the legions had insensibly yielded to the soft influence of peace. The commendable, if somewhat theatrical, act of a young tribune merits a brief notice. Martin, a 17-year-old of Pannonia, which would be modern-day Hungary, serving in the cavalry of the empire at the distant garrison of Amiens in Gaul. He was distinguished less by military ambition than by a peculiar, and to some perplexing, degree of Christian piety. It was the depth of a rigorous winter, a season which exercises with impartial severity the rich and the poverty-stricken. At the gate of the city, exposed to the pitiless harshness of the elements, lay a beggar, shivering, half naked, and imploring the charity of anyone who passed by. The young Martin, whose coffers, it is presumed, were not abundant, found himself without the means to bestow the conventional alms. Yet, moved by an impulse which his admirers would call divine, and his critics, perhaps a calculated display of virtue, he drew his military blade. With a singular resolution, he proceeded to divide that essential part of his uniform, the large woolen cloak, or kappa, into two equal portions. One half of the garment, which was of considerable utility in the cold northern climate, he delivered to the unfortunate beggar, while the other sufficed to cover his own person, now rendered somewhat ridiculous in the eyes of his fellow soldiers, who indulged in the sallies of their mirth at the spectacle of the truncated uniform. This generosity, this sharing a necessity rather than a superfluity, was soon gilded with the sanction of a miraculous vision. That very night, the soldier of Caesar was indulged with a visitation from the founder of his faith, our blessed Lord Jesus Christ, who appeared arrayed in the very segment of the cloak Martin had so generously bestowed. The divine figure, surrounded by celestial hosts, is said to have pronounced the name of the Pannonian soldier, an endorsement which confirmed Martin in his resolution to exchange the sword of temporal service for the more effective, if less glorious, standard of the Church. Soon after, he received the sacrament of baptism. He had been a catechumen for a while, but had not yet been baptized. But he was baptized then. He abandoned the military life and dedicated his existence to the severe and eventually triumphant labors of an ecclesiastic. The remaining portion of the cloak, preserved as a sacred relic, became the object of considerable veneration. Thus did a simple act of charity, in an age of fading martial vigour, lay the foundation for a new spiritual dominion of Christian generosity. Dear listeners, what is your understanding of generosity in the Christian sense? Father Faber, that flower of 19th century English spirituality, says the following: generosity causes a man to dare great things, to be forgetful of himself, to be detached from pettiness, to love hard work, to delight in sacrifices, and to always be aspiring to something higher and more arduous. It makes a man genial, and it is only a genial mind which is creative, fertile, or successful. Friends, definitions and theories are not much without practice. How do we practice generosity? The spirit of generosity may be looked at in two ways: as it exists in our own hearts, and as it actually inspires our conduct. How does it inspire our conduct, you might ask? Get on with it, Father. Tell us. Generosity inspires our conduct when we never have any reserves with God, when we set no definable bounds either to our love of Him or sacrifice for Him. Generosity inspires our conduct when we never fix our eye on any imaginary point of Christian conduct and then do nothing about it. We become generous in the doing. Generosity inspires our conduct when we forget the future and follow the present grace. Follow the present grace. And then the grace which shall present itself next, and then the grace after that, and so on, until God draws us to a nearness to Himself which it would frighten us now even to picture to our minds. Unless we see the reasonableness of this and really decide to pursue, it will remain a theory, a fantasy. It all depends on not being merely a loving instinct in the heart or a resolution in the will. It must also be verified as an intellectual conviction. One must persuade themselves of it. Perhaps these were the musings of Martin as he trotted along those cold Gallic roads. Perhaps discreetly meditating on the love of God and generosity to neighbour gave him the impetus to respond to the grace of kindness to that poor beggar when it came along. Perhaps. It is uncertain to us here so many years later, but what is certain is that we should not only think about goodness and kindness and generosity, but we should, by the grace of God, do something about it. May Mary, the most generous of all souls, help us and obtain for us an abundance of opportunity this week to be generous.
If you found this video fruitful, please feel free to share it with a friend or family member. Or if you would like to learn more about our missionary priests throughout the world and how to support them, please visit iveamerica.org. Thank you for watching, and God bless.